In this tutorial, you will learn to create a cute and stylized bedroom scene in the Blender software. We'll first go into modeling, then we'll create the required materials, work on the lighting, and finally finishing the rendering of the scene. So in the bedroom scene that we are creating, the first thing that we'll model is the floor and the walls. Then we'll get into other things like the window, the bed, a side table. So coming back to the first thing, which is to create the floor and the walls, I'll first delete all the objects in the scene right now. So press E to select and X to delete. Now press Shift A, go to mesh, and I'll be adding a plane object for now. Then go to the edit mode and I'll scale this up, let's say 5 times, and then return back to the object mode. This will act as the plane, or basically the floor on which we'll have the tiles and bed. But I think that we need to give this some thickness, because currently if I go to the front or the side view, you can see that it's just a two-dimensional object with no thickness at all. So we do not want this to happen. And as a result, I'll go to the edit mode by pressing the tab key again. And with all the vertices selected, I'll press E to extrude it up in the Z axis like this and left click. This will give it some thickness, and you can adjust this thickness easily in the edit mode. And after this, what I'll be doing is I'll create some walls for the bedroom model, and on one of the walls I'll be having a window, and on the other one I'll be having a painting. So for this, with this object selected over here, I'll create its duplicate by pressing Shift D, then right click to cancel. I'll go to the edit mode, and now I have to basically rotate this in the Y axis first by 90 degrees, then go to the front view, press G to move it and place this over here, let's say like this, and left click. Now it may be possible that you would want to change the thickness of the walls, because it cannot always be the same as that of the floor. So you can do this thing by going to the edit mode and scaling this up and down in the X axis. But for now, I think that the default scaling or the thickness looks perfect. So I'll not be changing that. And now for the other wall, which will be over here, just adjacent to this one, I'll go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad. And with this object selected, which is this wall, I'll be creating its duplicate, then right click to cancel, go to the edit mode, and with all the vertices selected, I'll be rotating this in the Z axis by 90 degrees. Then I'll again go to the top view and then press G to move this over here and left click. Now let's change the angle to see how it's placed in the scene. And currently I think that the height of the walls is a bit too much. So I'll go to the edit mode with both of these selected, and then I'll press Alt C to turn on the X-ray mode, and I'll only be selecting the top vertices of both the walls. Then I'll push them down in the Z axis, let's say to something over here, or maybe let me push them a little bit higher like this, and return back to the object mode. And now I think that this much height should work for the walls. We don't really want the walls to have the entire attention, because the style that we are going for is cute, so the bed and everything else in the scene would be somewhat smaller in size, and so we want the walls to be comparable to them. And so I think that this much size should work. If needed, we can change the size later on, but for the base start, I think that it is completely perfect. Now before we move forward and model the rest of the objects, I would just go to this menu over here, which is known as the viewport shading menu, and I'll turn on the cavity option. And this will allow me to see the objects in a better way, like these outlines that you can see, basically the empty areas. And apart from this, the next step that I'll do is to add some details to the walls. Currently they're looking very simple, and we do not want this. So I'll go to the edit mode with this wall selected, press Ctrl R, and let's say I add a loop cut here. Now I can just select this face over here, and I can extrude this out to add some detailing here. Like with this selected, if I press E to extrude it like this and left click, then I have some extrusion effect here, or basically a slight detail added to the wall. In a similar way, I can go to the edit mode again, then press Ctrl R, add a loop cut downwards over here, and then select, let's say this face, and press E to extrude it like this. Now return back to the object mode, and this is how it looks. If you want, you can adjust the size of these extrusions, like you can push the loops up and down, or you can change the extrusion depth also if you want this to be more outwardly extruded. But for now, I don't really want to change those things, so I'll go with this. And instead of doing the same thing on this one again, what I'll do is I'll simply delete this, then I'll select this one. Let's go to the front view, and I also think that I should push it upwards over here so that it does not really overlap with this floor that we have here. And I should also push it forward in the x-axis over here. Now once we have aligned everything properly, I'll go to the top view with this selected, then press Shift D to create a duplicate, right click to cancel, and just like we did before, I'll be rotating this in the Z axis by 90 degrees. Now I'll just change the angle to check where exactly I should be placing this wall. Since the extruded part of the wall is on this side, so I'll be placing this wall over here, which is, you can see here, in the negative y-axis. So I'll go to the top view and push it backwards in the y-axis. Let's say I place this over here like this, and you can just confirm this by zooming in that we have aligned the wall properly with respect to the floor like this. And now I'll move this in the x-axis over here. After this, I'll change the angle to see how the walls are aligned. And once this is done, the next thing that I'm planning to do now is to give this some roundness, because currently it is completely flat and very sharp. But the kind of style that I'm looking for, like you can also check in this render, I want something which looks cute and kind of beveled more with soft colors. So for that look, what I'll be doing is, with this wall selected, I'll first be applying the subdivision surface modifier so that we have some more geometry to work with, and then we'll be applying the bevel modifier to get that roundness on the edges that we need. So you can go to the modify properties and add modifier from here. But for the subdivision surface modifier, I'll be using the shortcut, which is to press Ctrl 2. This will give us a very weird result because we don't have too many vertices here in the base mesh, but we can fix that easily. First of all, I think we should be adding the bevel modifier. So I'll go to modify properties, click on add modifier, then in the generate, select the bevel modifier. Now to ensure that the bevel modifier works properly with the subdivision, we simply have to place this above the subdivision surface modifier. So you can left click and drag this above to change its position. Now even after using the bevel modifier, I don't really see much change here except for a little bit of roundness, but it's still not perfect. So to make it better, the first thing that we try is to increase the number of segments. So by default it is set to 1, but if I increase this to, let's say, 2, you will instantly notice a huge difference in the bevel quality, or I should say the roundness. Previously it looked like this, and after setting the number of segments to 2, it now looks a lot better. In fact, I even think that I can set it to 3 or 4, and with the segment value of around 3 or 4, you'll still notice these issues in the geometry of the mesh, which you can very easily solve by adding a loop cut here. So if I press Ctrl R to add a loop cut and place this over here, we see that the issue is no longer present. In a similar way, I'll be adding one loop cut at the bottom. So press Ctrl R to add one loop cut over here as well. And let me change the angle to check if anything else is needed. And yes, one more thing to notice here is that there should be a nice gap between this loop cut that you have added, both at the bottom as well as the top, and the other loops. Because let's say I push it down, then we notice that we are losing the roundness or the bevel effect as the loop is pushed down in the z-axis, which obviously we do not want. So there should be a perfect balance of where exactly you place the loop with respect to the other edges, or basically the loops in the mesh object. Now in a similar way, I'll be adding one loop cut over here and drag it like this till this point. Let's change the angle, and I don't really think that I need to add any other loop cuts over here. It looks completely perfect. I'll just set the number of segments in the bevel modifier to 5 to make this look a little bit better. And you can even control the segments from here, like I'll keep this to 0.07 or 0.08, and this is how it looks. Feel free to change this value and even the number of segments and also the position of these loops, and it will basically depend on how much stylized you want and which particular style you are targeting. Now instead of doing the same things on this one also, I'll simply copy the modifiers from this one so that I don't have to add those modifiers again here. So what I'll do is, I'll first select this wall, and then with the shift key holded, I'll select this one, then press Ctrl L to open the link menu, and here you will find copy modifiers. On doing this, you will notice that the modifiers are now applied to this object also, with the same settings like amount, segments, the levels you put in the subdivision. But the only thing that I need to do now is to fix these artifact issues, just like we did with this wall. So I'll select this, then go to the edit mode, press Ctrl R, add a loop cut here. Similarly, let's add one loop cut at the bottom, then add one of them over here like this, and left click. Now let's return back to the object mode, and we are finally ready with the walls of the bedroom scene that we are creating. Apart from this, I also think that I should be applying some subdivision surface modifier and the bevel modifier on this plane at the bottom. So what I'll do is, I'll be adding the same modifiers as we added to the walls of the room. So with this selected, I'll hold the shift key, then select this wall, press Ctrl L for the link menu, and select copy modifiers. This will add the bevel and the subdivision surface modifier to this object, and we now have this beveled or this rounded look that we needed. And once this is done, we will be having the basic structure of the walls and the floor. But for the room that we are creating, I don't really want such a simple floor. Like you can have that if you want for your scene, but I'll be going for some wooden tiles, and in order to create that, I'll be adding a cube object in the scene. So press Shift A, then go to Mesh and select a cube. Let's go to the front or the side view, then go to the edit mode and scale this down in the z-axis to make this thinner, and I'll even move it upwards in the z-axis over here. Now to make this tile rectangular, I have to scale this down in the x-axis, and I also think that I should make this thinner, so I'll scale this down in the z-axis also. Let me go to the top view to see its size, and I think that I should be having around 4 to 5 rows of tiles, and for that I think I should be increasing its scaling slightly in the y-axis like this. And after that, I think that it looks very rigid and without any bevels or roundness. So to fix that, I'll use the same technique of linking the modifiers or copying the modifiers. So with this selected, suppose I left click here, with the shift key hold it and then press Ctrl L and copy modifiers. Then this is how the modifier will get applied, both the bevel modifier as well as the subdivision to this tile. And in this case, I think I should keep the number of segments to 4, and I should also reduce the amount to 0.05 because I don't really want it to be so much rounded. And other than this, I also think that I should scale this down in the z-axis to make this thinner like this, and let me again adjust the size properly. And after this, I'll go to the top view. I also think that I should rotate it in the z-axis by 90 degrees, and I'll place this tile over here. Now to create multiple rows or columns of the same tile, I'll be using the array modifier, but before I do that, I think I should go to the side view and reposition this tile. In fact, I also think that I should move this plane downwards. Let's say I push it down over here and then place this tile, let's say over here. Now what I'll do is I'll go to the modifier properties, then click on add modifier. Then in the generate category, I have this array modifier. So I'll select this, and by default, it will add these duplicate tiles or basically these arrayed objects in the positive x-axis due to this offset value, which is 1 in the x. But if I reduce it down to 0 and instead go to this offset y value and try to increase it, then you can see that we are now getting the duplicate objects or basically the arrayed items in the y-axis. Now the reason why we are getting only 3 tiles is that in the count value we have the number 3. But if I increase this to let's say 8 or 16, then the new number of tiles in the scene or basically in this array or sequence will be 16. Now you will notice that we have some distance between these, which is because of the offset y value. Currently it is set to 1.69, and let's say I change this to 1. Then in this case, each of these tiles will be placed immediately after the previous tile in the sequence. And if you enter anything below 1 here, then these tiles will begin to overlap because of a reduced offset. And if you keep the value above 1, then you will notice these spaces between the tiles in the sequence. So in most of the cases, it is suggested to keep this value to 1 or maybe something like 1.1 if you want to have a little space between them, or we can keep this value even less like 1.05. But yes, you do have to take care of the fact that this will create some empty space between the tiles. In some cases, you might want that to happen because you don't just use the array modifier to create the tiles, but even for other things that you want to duplicate in multiple numbers, and you might want to have some space between them. Like let's say you're creating a scene with some trees and you want those to appear at a certain distance away from each other. So you won't really want them to overlap with one another, and you would also not want them to be just after one another. Like you would like to have some distance between them. And in that case, you have to keep the offset value to anything above 1. But in this particular case, I don't really want to have much distance or in fact any distance between the tiles. I want them to be tightly packed. So I'll change the value of offset y to 1, or in fact, I think I should keep this value to something even lower like 0.97 or 0.96 because I don't want even a little bit of empty space between these, which might otherwise occur because of the bevel or the rounding effect. And apart from this, I'll reduce the count to let's say 14. And after this, the next thing that I want to do is to randomize these duplicate items or the arrayed items that we have in the sequence. Currently, they're all looking exactly same. Like in terms of their positions, but you can add some randomization, let's say in their x-axis position or maybe in their rotation. And for this, you simply have to go to the array modifier, and in this you will have this randomize section. So if I turn it on and then click here to open this drop down menu, then you will find that you have almost all the properties available to randomize. Like if I go to the offset x value, then this will add some randomness to the x-axis offset. Similarly, you can do the same in the y-axis or the z-axis. That will basically control the movement up and down. But I don't really want to make any changes in the randomization of the z-axis offset or the y-axis offset, but I do want some randomization in the x offset that will shift the tiles in random positions like you can see here. But do ensure that these values stay in a limit, because doing too much randomization might break the look that you're trying to achieve. And so I'll be reducing this value to, let's say, 0.02, or maybe I should go for 0.04. Then similarly, I can even add some randomization to the x-axis rotation. This thing is completely optional, but you can add a little bit of randomization in the rotation of x-axis basically. Other than this, you have the scaling, but I don't really want that. Similarly, you have flipping, but again, it's not something that we'll be going into right now. For now, I think that we have a little bit of randomization here, and that's all what we need. So the next thing will be to create more copies of this sequence or the array that we just created. And for that, I'll be applying one more array modifier on this current one. What it will do is it will create multiple copies of these tiles in the x-axis for the remaining floor. So let's say with this array modifier selected, I'll click here and select duplicate. Then this will duplicate the array modifier with the same settings, but we don't really want that. So first of all, I'll reduce the offset y value to 0, and in the offset x, I'll change this to negative of 1 and reduce the count value to, let's say, 5, or maybe I should change this to 4, or maybe let's keep this to 5 only. And I'll bring the offset x value to, let's say, minus 0.9. Let's see how it looks. And currently the only issue is that this tile sequence is getting outside the view, and I can easily solve this by going to the edit mode, press A to select all. I don't really know where this tile is. Yeah, it is over here. And I'll reduce its scaling slightly in the x-axis, then push it in the x-axis over here. Let's again check that, and this is how it looks. Now I'll go to the offset x value and bring this to, let's say, minus 0.97. And after this, I'll go to the randomize section of the second array modifier that we just added, and I'll disable this because we have already applied the randomization once and we don't really want that to be applied again, because in that case we'll get so much randomization in the x-axis offset that we don't want. In this case, we want them to appear just like as they are without any randomization. So let's keep them as it is. And other than this, I also think that the scene can look a lot better if the tiles were scaled up in the x-axis and there were 4 such rows of tiles. So what I'll do is I'll go to the edit mode of this tile by pressing the tab key. Then I'll scale it up back in the x-axis like this and reduce the count value to 4 instead of 5. Let's change the angle, and I'll push these in the x-axis like this. And now I think that the tiles are properly placed with a little bit of randomization in the x-axis, which you can notice if you go zoomed into the object. Like you can see that they're not following a straight line, but some of them are over here, some of them are over here. So this is exactly what we wanted to achieve. And once this is done, we are now ready with the walls and the floor with the tiles. And one more thing before continuing, some of you might think that I'm over explaining stuff, and I'm really sorry if that is the case. The thing is that I want to make these tutorials aimed for beginners who don't have much knowledge in Blender, but they want to create some scenes or renders for their portfolio, or just for understanding how different things work together when you're actually building something. Because learning the concepts is a different thing, and actually applying them in some project or a practical work is a separate thing. So it might be possible that I'm over explaining some stuff, but if that is the case, I would request you to just increase the playback speed or skip that part which you think that you know very well and you can achieve the same result on your own. And now coming back to the scene, we'll now get into modeling the stylized bed. And for that, I'll first be adding a cube in the scene. So press Shift A, then Mesh and select the cube. Let's move it above in the Z axis. And then using the front or the side view, I'll zoom in and go to the edit mode. And now I want to make this shape look like a bed. So first of all, let me check the angle. Like I'll be placing the bed over here. So I want it to be longer in the y-axis. So I'll go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad, and I'll scale this up in the y-axis. Approximately this much size should be fine. Other than this, I'll go to the top view and scale it up in the x-axis. Let's say like this, and you would have to adjust the sizes depending on what exactly is the style you are going for, just like we did for the walls and the tiles. But for now, I think that this much size should work for our scene. So I'll push it down in the z-axis, let's say over here, and then I'll go to the top view and I'll place this over here. Let's change the angle, and this is where I have placed this bed. I think I should move it slightly away from the wall like this. And currently I think that it's too much scaled up in the z-axis. I don't really want this to be so huge. So I'll again go to the edit mode and bring this down like this and move it down in the z-axis again. After this, I'll form the back part of the bed with the same object. So for this, I'll go to the edit mode, and now I have to add some loop cuts here so that I can select the faces and extrude them up. To see this practically, I'll be adding two loop cuts by using Ctrl R and controlling the number of loop cuts by using the scroll wheel, then left click and right click to cancel the movement. And then with both the loop cuts selected, I'll scale them in the x-axis to basically push them apart. And now I'll be adding one more loop cut over here like this. Then press 3 for the face select mode. Select these two faces and press E to extrude. Let's say I keep it to something over here. Then I'll add one loop cut over here by pressing Ctrl R, and let me add one more over here. Then with these two faces selected and with the shift key hold it so that they are both selected together, I'll press Ctrl E for the edge menu, and here you will find bridge edge loops. This will create this bridge of faces which will basically connect them together just like we wanted. And after this, I'll be adding one loop cut over here and one more over here. Now I'll be selecting this face and this one, press E to extrude it. Basically I'm trying to add some more details, and this thing is completely optional for you. If you feel that you want something very simple, you can go with the existing model, and yes, we'll also apply some subdivision and some beveling later on. But right now I'm just giving it a shape of the bed. So apart from this, I'll be selecting this face here and slightly extrude it. I'll make sure that this extrusion is less than the ones on the sides. And after this, I think that the base model is ready. We have to form the legs of the bed, but I'll do that later on. For now, I'll be bringing the subdivision surface modifier. So press Ctrl 2 to add subdivision, and it will appear very weird right now because we are not having much geometry, specifically the loop cuts or the bevels. So we can easily fix this thing by adding a few loop cuts. So let's say I press Ctrl R, add one loop cut over here, then press Ctrl R to add one more over here. Then I'll change the angle and add two loop cuts here. Let's scale them apart in the x-axis and add two more over here. Or maybe let's not do this. Instead, I'll add two loop cuts here on this side, and I'll scale them apart in the x-axis just like I did with this one. Then I'll press Ctrl R over here. Let's do the same thing on this part also. And you will start to notice that the shape on those areas where we have these loop cuts will begin to look much better than before. Now in a very similar way, I'll be adding one loop cut over here and one more over here like this. Then I'll change the angle. Let's add one loop cut here so that this particular part of the mesh will be shaped better. And then I'll add one loop cut here at the bottom. Now let's add one loop cut over here, one of them over here on the opposite side. Now what I'll do is I'll click on this icon that will disable the display of subdivision modifier so that we can take a much better look at the geometry. And I think that I can add one loop cut over here. Let's say like this. Let's get back the view again so that we can take a look at how the final result will look. And now I think that I need to add two loop cuts here. Let's scale them apart in the x-axis like this. Let's take a look at the subdivision model. So this is how it looks. I think that I need to add one loop cut over here as well, and similarly over here. Now this process can be a little bit time consuming, but it's a very important step. You can even do this by using the bevel modifier, but sometimes I have noticed that the results are really not that good, or even if they are, you have to make the final adjustments manually. So in this case I decided to go for some manual adjustments instead of using the bevel modifier. And I also think that I can shift this by pressing G twice, let's say over here, so that I can have some roundness on this part like this. And I'll even add one loop cut here at the bottom to make this part flat like this. Now I'll go to the object mode, then right click and apply shade smooth, and this is how the bed appears. You can make adjustments like you can select this face over here on the top and push it slightly above like this if you want this part to be bigger, or else you can select these two faces also and push these above like this, and this is how it looks. Now I'll again go to the edit mode, or maybe I should first select these two and press H to hide because I'm going to model the legs of the bed. So with this selected, I'll go to the edit mode. Let's add one loop cut here, or maybe I'll return back to the object mode and instead add a cube object here. Let's scale this down and scale this up in the Z axis. Then go to the front view, or maybe I should also hide this part like this, and I'll go to the side view. And yes, now I only have the bed and this leg in the scene. Now I'll press G to move this over here. Let's scale this up like this, and then I'll go to the front view. I'll press Shift D to move it in the x-axis. If you want, you can even use the mirror modifier. Now I'll press Ctrl 2 and then I'll press Ctrl R to add a loop cut here at the bottom, and let me also add one loop cut here like this. Then I'll again go to the front view, and I think I should scale it up slightly like this. Now I'll delete this and again create a duplicate and place this one over here. Now I'll enable the X-ray mode, select both of these objects over here, then press Shift D and move them in the Y-axis and place them over here. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is to bring back those walls and the floor along with the tiles. So in the scene collection, I'll unhide the cube, which is basically these tiles, and then I'll scroll down to unhide the floor and the walls. And after this, we'll be having the bed ready in the scene along with the legs and the walls and floor. Apart from this, I'll be selecting this plane and the legs, and I'll push them slightly in the x-axis so that the bed doesn't take all the space, basically almost half of the space of the room. Now I'll push it slightly above and I'll ensure that it's not flying in the air, like its legs should be stick to the tiles or at least be close to it like we have right now. But I can push this slightly more downwards like this, and now it looks perfect. Now a bed will be incomplete without a mattress. So what I'll do is I'll select this bed, then go to the top view, press 3 for the face select mode, and I'll be selecting, let's say, all these faces over here. Then press Shift D to create a duplicate, right click, and I want to create a separate object out of these faces. So I'll press P to separate by selection, then return back to the object mode and select this object. Press A to select all, and I'll scale it up in the Y axis like this. Let me scale it up even further like this and push it over here. Now what I'll do is I'll go to the edit mode and press E to extrude it up like this. Then press Ctrl R to add a loop cut here and add one more loop cut here at the bottom. Let me add one loop cut here as well to give it a proper shape, and do the same thing on the other side, and this is how it looks. Personally, I feel that due to the irregular placement of vertices or the edges, it's not really looking very nice. So it would be better if I delete this and instead add a new cube object in the scene, move it above, and let's scale this down, and I'll give it the shape of a mattress. So I'll go to the top view, press G to move this over here and scale it up first of all like this in the x-axis, and then scale it up in the y-axis. After this, I'll go to the object mode and I'll push it down in the z-axis, and I'll go to the side view to check everything like the placement, positions, and I think I should push it back in the y-axis. I should also scale this down in the y-axis a little bit, and once all the adjustments are done, I'll press Ctrl 2 for the subdivision surface modifier. Then I'll go to the edit mode, press Ctrl B to apply some bevel and left click. Now currently it feels like it is not really lying down on the bed, so I'll push it down like this. And the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'll be creating a bed sheet, and for that what I'll do is I'll first add a loop cut here and I'll adjust its placement depending on how long I want this bed sheet or the blanket to be. Since this is a stylized model, so it doesn't really matter if it's a bed sheet or a blanket. It would be kind of wrapped around the mattress on the bed. So I'll keep it to somewhere over here. Then I'll add one more loop cut, let's say till this point. And now what I'm going to do is I'll go to the top view, then press Alt C to turn on the X-ray mode. press 3 for the face select mode, and I'll be selecting all these faces over here. Now I'll press Alt E to extrude the faces along normals like this, and depending on how thick I want the bed sheet or the blanket to be, I'll adjust its extrusion. Then I can go to extrude region and go to the offset value here, and I'll adjust this properly. Let's say I keep this to 0.09. Then I'll press Ctrl R to add a loop cut here. Then I'll select this particular face loop, press Alt E to extrude the faces along normals, and I'll keep this one's extrusion to be slightly bigger than the previous one. So let's say I keep this to 0.2, and then I'll add a loop cut over here to reduce that weird stretching effect that we just saw. And this is how the bed sheet looks. I can shade the smooth to give this an even better appearance, and after this I think I should slightly push it above in the z-axis, or maybe I can adjust its position like this. Apart from this, I think that there should be a pillow here, and for that also I'll be using a very simple cube object in a rectangular shape. So press Shift A, go to mesh and add a cube. Let's move it above in the z-axis, and I'll first of all scale this down in the y-axis like this. Press Ctrl R to add a loop cut here. Press Ctrl R to add one more loop cut, and I'll scale this in the x-axis like this to make it rectangular. Then after this I'll be selecting these two vertices and I'll scale these up in the y-axis like this. Then I'll be selecting these vertices on the corners, and with all of these selected, that is all 8 of them, I'll be scaling them down in the y-axis like this. And let me also bring them closer in the z-axis. Then while being in the object mode, I'll press Ctrl 2 for the subdivision surface modifier, and I'll right click to apply shade smooth. This will give us a very simple model of a pillow that's not really very complex, and you can adjust the scaling depending on how big you want the pillow to be or how thick you want it. And after that I'll place this over here. Let's adjust the placement by going to the front or the side view depending on the orientation, and I think I should scale this down like this and rotate it and place it over here. After this, the bed is completely ready, and currently I think that the mattress or the bed sheet size is too much, so I'll push them down like this. And also what I can do is I can select this vertex loop and this one also with the Alt and Shift key hold it together, and I can scale these slightly down like this, and this is how it looks. Here I think that the pillow is looking very weird, so I'll fix that in a little while, but first I'll move this up in the z-axis like this, and then I'll select the pillow, push it down in the z-axis. Let's say I place this over here, and I'll also increase its scaling in the x-axis like this. I also think that I can scale this up in the local y-axis, and this is how it looks. And finally after this, the next thing that I'm going to do is to add some geometry on this front part of the bed. So for that I'll be adding a loop cut here, and I won't be going for that extra rounded shape anymore, but instead I'll be selecting this entire loop of vertices from here till this point. So with the control key holded, I'll select this face, then press E to extrude it like this. Then I'll be holding the shift key, and let's say I select these faces, press E to extrude it up like this, press Ctrl R to add a loop cut here, and press Ctrl R to add another loop cut here like this. And I also think that I should push these slightly down again like this. Now see, these adjustments that I'm doing here might be too much for some of you, but again it's completely a matter of personal preference. You can continue doing these adjustments for as long as you want, or depending on how you want your scene to appear. And even when you're adding the materials or the shaders, you will sometimes notice that something which you didn't think before would look much better to you, and it is completely normal to make adjustments in anything like positions, rotation, or scale, even in those stages. So if you're very serious about these minor modifications, feel free to make those changes. But for now, I won't be making any other changes in the bed. And now I'll move to the next thing that I want to have in my scene, which is a simple painting over here on this wall. I'm planning to have painting on this wall and a window on this one. So for the painting, I'll be adding a cube object in the scene. Let's move it above in the z-axis, and I'll scale this down in the y-axis. Let's say I keep the thickness to something like this. Then I'll go to the front view and I'll scale this up in the x-axis like this. And after this, let's create the border of the painting. So with this face selected, I'll press I to insert, press E to extrude it backwards like this, then press Ctrl 2, and now I'll be adding the bevel modifier. So go to the modify properties, click on add modifier. Then in the generate category, select bevel. Let's keep it above the subdivision, and I'll increase the number of segments to, let's say, 3, or maybe let's bring it further up to 4. And after this, I'll go to the edit mode, press A to select all, press Ctrl B to apply some bevel, and left click. With this, we now have the photo frame almost ready. I can right click to apply shade smooth, then go to the top view, press G to push it back in the Y axis, let's say over here, and this is how it looks. We'll be adding the painting using an image texture node while we are working on the materials and the textures part. But for now, the next thing that I'm going to create in this scene is the circular mat, which will be really very simple to model because we'll be using the hair particles to create it. So to begin with modeling it, I'll press Shift A, then go to Mesh and select a circle. It will get placed at the 3D cursor. So I'll move it up in the Z axis and go to the top view, press G to move it over here and go to the edit mode and scale it up. Let's change the angle to see its placement. And currently it is not having any faces. Like if I go to the edit mode and press 1 for the vertex selection mode, then you can see that we have all these vertices but no face. So I'll press Ctrl F to open the face menu and select grid fill. You can adjust the span and the offset value, and once it is done, I'll press E to extrude it slightly above, then press Ctrl 2 for the subdivision surface modifier, and let me also apply some bevel. But before that, I'll move this up a little bit like this, then go to the modify properties, click on add modifier, and in the generate category select bevel, then move it above subdivision and increase the number of segments to 3 or 4. And after this, the only thing that I have to do on this circle is to first push it downwards in the Z axis so that it touches the floor or the tile. And apart from this, I'll be adding some hair particles here. So for this, I'll go to the particle settings, then click on the plus icon, and this will add a particle system with the emitter selected. But I'll change this to hair, and by default, the hair size or the hair length will be 4 meters. But we don't really want this. We want the hair or these particles to be very small in size, and so I'll change the hair length to, let's say, zero point 0.1 meters. I'll increase their number to, let's say, 5000, or maybe let's change this to 8000. Then I'll go to the children settings and change this to simple. Then in the display amount, I'll change this to 8, and similarly in the render amount also, I'll enter 8. Now in the radius, I'll try to enter a lower value like zero point 0.1 or 0.06. It will basically control the area around the parent hair particles where we'll see the children particles. And now I'll scroll down and go to the clumping settings, and I'll slightly twist this like this. I'll enter a value, let's say 5. I don't want this to be completely flat. And apart from this, feel free to make any changes in the size or in the number of hair particles. But once all that is done, we'll quickly proceed to the next thing in the scene, which is to create the window in the room. So on this particular wall, we'll be having a window, and for that, I'll be using the Boolean modifier with the cube. So to do that practically, I'll be adding cube in the scene. So let's press Shift A, then go to Mesh and select a cube. I'll move it above in the Z axis, place this over here, then go to the side view and then go to the edit mode. And the thing that I'm going to do right now is to basically create that rectangular area with the help of this cube that I need to cut out from this wall that is behind it, and we'll then use it to create the window. So I will first scale it up in the Y axis because I need the wall to be rectangular like this, and then I'll scale it up in the Z axis. Then I'll push it in the Y axis over here, and to align it properly, that is with respect to this wall that is over here, I'll push it in the X axis as well like this. And after this, I'll make sure that it's properly placed from the side view as well, because this will be the region where we'll have the window cutout. Now to create that cutout of the window that I'm talking about, I'll simply select this wall, then I'll go to the modify properties here and click on add modifier. Then in the generate category, you will find the Boolean modifier. So whenever you have to create a cutout of anything from any mesh, combine two meshes together, then in that case you have to use the Boolean modifier, and you have to select the operation depending on what exactly you are trying to do. Like if you're planning to intersect two objects together, then you'll select intersect. If you're planning to combine two objects together, then you will have to select the union. And if you're trying to create a cutout, or basically the difference, just like we're doing in this case, you will be selecting the difference operation. After this, in the object type, you have to select the second object, which will be this cube in this case. So with this eyedropper tool, I'll be selecting this cube. And once I do this, I can simply select this cube that is over here and hide it in the scene as well as in the camera render. And here we notice that we now have a cutout for the window in the scene. Also, one more thing that you need to take care is that you can make any changes in this cube that is hidden right now, and those changes will get applied to the cutout region also. Like if I go to the edit mode and scale it up, and then if I hide it again, then the same changes will get applied here. But this thing will only work if you have not yet permanently applied the boolean modifier. For those of you who don't know, simply adding the modifiers here does not mean that you have applied them also. Right now you can make any changes in these modifiers that you can see here, meaning that they're not permanent. If I want, I can set the amount to something else right now, or I can change the number of segments in the bevel modifier, or I can even change the levels you put value in subdivision if I want. I can even remove these modifiers by clicking on the cross icon. But once I click here and click on apply, I won't be able to make these changes because they will get permanently applied to the geometry of the object. But yes, you might be able to undo if you have not gone too far, but in most of the cases, after you apply these modifiers and make lots of changes in the scene or the object, it becomes impossible to go back again and make those changes in the modifiers. So just take care of this fact before you actually apply any modifier. Now coming back to Boolean, I have set the operation to difference and selected this object, which was required to make this window that you can see. But even right now, it doesn't really look like a complete window because even though its shape is perfect and it is a clean cutout, but there are still some features that we should add to make it look like a stylized window. Like first of all, what I'll do is I'll press Shift A, then go to mesh and select a cube. Then I'll scale it down the Z axis. Let me also push it up over here. Then go to the front view and I'll scale this down in the X axis like this and also slightly in the Z axis. And I'll be placing this over here in front of the window on its bottom part. So let's scale this up in the Y axis like this and place this over here. After this, I'll go to the front view again to align it properly with the wall. So let's push it in the X axis over here like this. And this is just an extension of the lower part of the window. Now I'll scale this down in the Z axis, and I also need to apply some bevel and some subdivision to this because right now it is very sharp because we are using the default cube. So I'll press Ctrl 2 and in the modifier I'll go to bevel modifier and place it above the subdivision just like we did for all the other objects. Then I'll increase the number of segments to let's say 3, or maybe I should go with 4. Let's keep the amount to something like 0.05. Then in the subdivision I'll try for levels viewport 2 or 3, and I'll right click to apply shade smooth. I think this looks perfect, but I can decrease the number of segments to 3 like this, and I'll push it down in the Z axis slightly. Apart from this, I'll be going to the edit mode and scale it up in the X axis like this and push it backwards in the X axis over here. Now this looks almost perfectly aligned. I'll make some minute changes in its scaling and positioning, and once that is done, we'll start with making the window frame. And to do that, I'll simply go to the edit mode, then press Shift A to add a cube object. I'll move it upwards in the Z axis, and after this I'll scale it down first of all like this and place this over here on the top. Then I'll scale it up in the Y axis like this and align it properly with respect to the window. Let's change the angle and I'll push it backwards in the X axis over here so that it is properly aligned, and I'll even reduce its width or basically the scaling in the X axis. Then after this, with this selected, I'll create its duplicate and move it downwards over here like this, and I'll push this one above a little bit like this. Then I'll go to the front or the side view, and with this selected I'll create its duplicate. Then I'll rotate this by 90 degrees and I'll place this over here. Let's reduce its scaling in the Z axis and move it above in the Z axis as well. Then I'll create its duplicate by pressing Shift D and place it here. We now have an outer window frame completely ready, but what I'll do is I'll add one more cube in the middle of the window. So I'll press Shift D to create a duplicate and move it in the Y axis over here. Let's check if it's really in the middle or not, and I feel like I can move it slightly in the Y axis over here to align it properly, and this is how the window looks. If you are wondering why these black things appear over here, it's basically happening because of the overlapping of meshes. Like I have this mesh over here and I also have this exact same mesh in terms of the scaling, and they're overlapping on this part. Similarly over here, you can notice this overlapping happening again, which is due to this mesh and this one. So if you want to avoid this from happening, then you can simply select, let's say, these three cube objects. Then you can press tab to enter the edit modes together. Then you can slightly scale them down in the x-axis. And the moment you do that, you will notice that the overlapping is no more happening and you get completely perfect result. But yes, do ensure that you don't scale it down too much, because in that case, it won't look a part of the window, but rather a separate object, which we don't really want. And if you want, you can even add some bevel to this window, but I leave that to you because currently I want this to be a simple window with not really much details. So I'll keep it as it is, but I'll be selecting this and I'll slightly scale this down in the y-axis. After this, the next thing I'll do is I'll be selecting this painting over here and I'll push it backwards to align it properly with the wall. Like I can go to the side view and check that it's not really placed properly. So I'll push it backwards over here. And after this, the next thing to do is to create a side table for the bed. On the left side of the bed, we'll have a side table here and we'll also place a lamp on it. And later on, when we work on the lighting, we'll also add some light in it. So for the side table, I'll be adding a cube in the scene. So press Shift A, then go to Mesh and select the cube. Let's move it above in the Z axis. And I think we can go with the default size only, or maybe I should very slightly scale this down in the Z axis to make it slightly smaller. Then what I'll do is, with all the edges selected, I'll press Ctrl B to apply some bevel because I want it to have a rounded appearance at these edges. And after that, I'll be selecting the four faces on these sides. With the Shift key holded, I'll select the four of them. Then I'll press Alt E to open the extrude menu and I'll select extrude faces along normals. Then if I move the cursor down, then these faces will get extruded inwards, and if I move the cursor up, then they will be extruded outwards. But in this case, I want them to be extruded inwards like this and then return back to the object mode. Then if I press Ctrl 2 for some subdivision, then this is how the cube will look. Now I'll right click to apply shade smooth, and we have got this nice pattern on the sides of this table that we are creating. It looks circular because of the subdivision surface modifier, and it is pushed inwards because of the extrusion effect that we created. I can even press S to scale this down or scale it up if I want to make any changes in the way this circle appears. And to make these extrusions or these circles a bit smoother, I can go to the subdivision surface modifier and change the levels you put value from 2 to 3, and this will make the details look even better. After this, I'll go to the top view and I'll place this side table over here. Then I'll go to the front or the side view and I'll move it downwards in the Z axis, let's say over here. And I also think that I should slightly scale this down in the Y axis like this, and I'll also push it slightly backwards in the Y axis so that it is aligned properly with the bed. After this, I'll again go to the edit mode and I'll scale it down a little bit in the Z axis again. And once this is done, the next thing that we are going to do is to model the lamp that we keep on this table. So for this, I'll be adding a cylinder object in the scene. So press Shift A, then go to Mesh and select a cylinder. Let's move it above in the Z axis and I'll go to the front or the side view. Then while being in the edit mode, I'll be adding a loop cut over here, and this will help us to define the shape of the lamp that we are creating. In fact, I think that I should be having two more loop cuts. So what I can do is, instead of adding them by using the Ctrl plus R method, I'll keep this loop selected, which I just added, and I'll press Ctrl B, which is to basically bevel, and I'll then use the scroll wheel to set the number of segments to 2, and then I'll left click. Then I'll press O to turn on the proportional editing tool and I'll select this loop in the middle. I'll scale this up like this, and you can adjust the circle of proportion or basically its area by using the scroll wheel. If you scroll it up, then the size of the circle of influence decreases, and if you scroll it down, then the size of the circle of influence increases. So I'll keep it to something like, and left click, then press A to select all and slightly scale this up in the Z axis so that we get a nice cylindrical shape just like we have for a lamp. And after this, I'll right click to apply shade auto smooth, then press Ctrl 2 for some subdivision, and let's also add the bevel modifier. So in the modify properties, let's search for the bevel modifier and place it above the subdivision. Then for the number of segments, let's keep this to 2 or 3, and I'll go with the default amount value in the bevel. I'm keeping a very simple shape for the lamp. I'm not going into too much details, but if you like, you can maybe select this one over here and scale it down slightly, or you can make any changes or add any details to the lamp that you want. Now coming to the top part of the lamp, I'll be using another cylinder. So press Shift A, then go to Mesh and add a cylinder. Let's move it up in the Z axis over here. Now go to the edit mode, select this edge loop on the bottom, and I'll press S to scale this up like this. Now I'll move it downwards in the Z axis so that it covers the lower body of the lamp. And apart from this, I'll also select this face loop at the bottom and press X to delete the face. Other than this, I'll be selecting this face on the top as well by pressing 3 for the face selection mode and selecting this face. Then press X to delete the face. And the reason I'm doing this is I'll be adding a light here inside the lamp, and I guess it will create an interesting effect when the light passes and reflects through this circular hole that we have here on the top of the lamp. We might see some reflections around in the room, but we'll get into that during the lighting part. For now, I'll just go back to the object mode, then press Ctrl 2 for some subdivision, right click to apply shade auto smooth. And apart from this, if you want, you can give it some thickness by going to the edit mode again and selecting all these faces. Then you can press Alt E and extrude faces along the normals to give this some thickness, but you would also have to apply some bevel modifier because you have used the subdivision. So in the modifier, we'll go for bevel and place it above subdivision. Then in the number of segments, I'll enter 2 or maybe 3, and in the amount, I think we should keep this to 0.04 or 0.05 like this. And I think now it looks very much better. So I'll go to the front view, and with both of these selected, I'll go to the edit mode, press A to select all and scale this down. I should also disable the proportional editing tool by pressing O and then scale this down. But due to scaling these down together, their origin points have been affected, so we need to get back their origin points to the geometry. So I'll select the top part of the lamp first, then go to the object menu and set origin to geometry. Then I'll go to the lower body of the lamp, go to object settings and set the origin to geometry. Then with both of these selected, I'll place them downwards in the Z axis so that we align them with the side table that we have here, and then I'll push them in the x-axis over here. Now press 7 on the numpad to go to the top view, and I also have to adjust the positions in the y-axis like this, and let's change the angle to see if they're properly placed. And I personally think that the size of the lamp is still too big, so what I'll do is I'll go to the edit mode again, press A to select all the faces, press S to scale these down together, and let's push them downwards again. Let's push them slightly backwards as well so that it looks like it is kept in the middle of the table, or basically its top surface. Apart from this, it might also possible that you would like to have some extrusion on the top part of this side table that we have. Basically, if you want the tabletop to be of bigger size as compared to the rest of the side table, but that thing is completely optional and I won't be going into too much details into that. Now the scene looks almost complete in terms of modeling. Maybe if you want, you can add a flower vase here, or let's say you want something even more simpler like a dustbin or maybe a plant pot. So you can create something like that in a very similar manner like we created the lower body of the lamp. In fact, I think I can duplicate this and move it in the x-axis over here. Then I'll press the forward slash button to keep the focus only on this object. Then I'll select this face loop over here, basically both of these, and I'll adjust the scaling. Then I'll also select this one, and let's say I select this face and delete the face on the top. Then this creates a kind of empty dustbin or anything, basically an empty cylindrical object. You can add anything in it if you want, or you can keep it completely empty. You can place it over here in the scene, like I can push this down in the Z axis, and I should also scale this up slightly so that it appears properly in the scene. I'll move it above in the Z axis and push it over here, and with this I think that the scene is completely ready. There's nothing else that I need to change anywhere, at least as of now. It might be possible that when I render the scene I might want to add some little details, or when I'm working on the lighting or the texturing part, but for now everything looks completely perfect, so I won't be making any other changes. The only thing that I can see here right now which might require a little attention is the size of the tiles. Like the tiles are not completely covering this area, and although it won't be visible in the final render, like if I take the shot from here, it won't be visible much, but it might not be the same case with you. So what I'll do is I'll be selecting these tiles, then I'll go to their edit mode and I'll slightly scale them up in the x-axis, and I'll take care of the fact that it properly covers the floor. So I can go to the front or the side view to check that. And I also think that I should slightly scale this up in the y-axis to cover this area fully. Let's switch the view to check it from this angle as well. And here also I can notice that it is completely covering the floor area that we want. And now I think that we can finally start with adding the lights, applying the materials and textures. So to begin with that, I'll first change this view from solid mode to the render preview mode here. And for now, I'll click here and disable the scene world so that I can get some fake HDRI lighting in the scene. And after this, what I'll do is I'll go to the render properties and change the render engine from EV to cycles. I'll also change the render device from CPU to GPU, and this is how our scene is currently looking. Like you can notice these shadows. Currently it is completely white because it does not have any customized materials that we'll just be creating. But before we start with creating the materials and the textures, a very important thing to consider is the fact that since we are working on stylized creation, a good practice is considered to follow a particular color scheme or a color palette. Like it's suggested not to have too many colors in the scene because that takes away the essence of the render. Like if you're having a room where you want to show a bed, some walls, some windows, basically you want to show some peace and calm. So in those cases, you won't be going with colors like red or black or let's say the green color. Obviously, you can select those colors and come up with something that might look good, but in general cases, we will go for colors in this case like the brown color for the bed. We can have the same brown color with maybe some slight variations for the window, the photo frame, the side table, even the tiles here. We would have to make some slight adjustments depending on what we are using the material for. But broadly, if we consider, we'll be using the softer colors. Like maybe we can use some pink color for the bed sheet or some slight gray color for the walls. Then maybe you can have some yellow color on the lamp. It's not some hard and fast rule that you have to follow a particular color scheme only. You can play around with these and come up with your own results also. But what I have seen in most of the cases is that while working on scenes like this one where you have stylized models or basically a complete scene with stylized models, choose let's say 3 to 4 colors and try to form their variations only to complete your scene, and it's highly likely that you will end up getting a scene that really looks beautiful, but just make sure to choose the colors that go well with the style and the art that you're making. Now coming back to the scene, I'll first be selecting these walls that I have here. Then I'll go to the material properties, and by default there is no material here. So to create a new material, I'll click on this new button, and for this one I won't be going for the complete white color because that will make the room too bright. So I'll go to the base color and I'll slightly reduce the brightness. I'll keep it to something like the light gray color. And similarly for this wall also, I'll be selecting the same material by clicking here, which will open the list of materials, and I'll select this material. Also for this floor that we have at the bottom, I'm not selecting the tiles but the floor. So just do take care of this fact. And with this floor selected, I'll go to the material properties, and for this one also, I'll be going for this material. This will give a nice peaceful look to the room. If you go for something which is very bright on the walls, then when you show the final render to someone, it might be difficult to understand that what exactly is the main thing to see in the scene. Is it the walls or is it the bed? So you have to decide that which objects in your scene should have the most focus of the viewer or the audience, and based on that you can choose the colors and the materials. Now the next thing is the tiles. So with this selected, I'll go to the material properties and let's create a new material for the tiles. Here if you want, you can keep a very simple material for the tiles that will just be brown color. Like you can just change this to the brown color and you can go ahead with that. But in this case, I think I'll be adding some texture to it. I won't be converting it into some realistic wood texture because that's not what the scene is demanding in this case. But I'll at least have some noise texture on these to add some pattern to these tiles. So for this, I'll be changing this window, which is the timeline editor right now, into the shader editor. So I'll click here and change this to the shader editor. This will present the default principal BSDF node along with the material output. I won't be making much changes here except for roughness value. I think I should keep this to 0.7. And apart from this, for the texture that I was talking about, I'll be adding the noise texture node here. So press Shift A, then go to texture and select the noise texture. Let's place this over here. And currently if I take the factor socket and connect it to the base color in the principal BSDF, you will notice this pattern on the tiles, which is because of the noise texture. We can control the white and the black areas, and we can even change their colors by using the color ramp node. So after the noise texture node, I'll add the color ramp node here. So I'll press Shift A, then go to color and select the color ramp. Let's place this over here in between both of these nodes. And now if I take this black pointer and left click to drag it like this, then you can notice that the darker areas are appearing to be more black. But instead, if I take the white part and begin to change the position of this pointer, then these areas will become brighter, or basically the amount of white color or its strength will increase. But in this case, I don't really want the tiles to be black and white. Instead, I want the main color to be brown. So I'll change this white color to something which looks like the wood material, which is the brown color. So I'll keep it to something like this, or maybe I should bring down the brightness further. And apart from this, instead of this black color on the second pointer, I'll be changing this to the white color. So in this color wheel, I'll increase the brightness from here to change this to the white color. And currently it doesn't really look very good because it just looks like some random white thing is fallen all over the floor, and we definitely don't want this in our scene. Instead of this, maybe we can try to get some streaks on the wood. So for this, I'll go to the noise texture node, and before that I need to add two nodes which are very commonly used to change the scaling or the look of the noise texture. Of course, you can use these scale values also, but when you have to change it in a particular axis, then you have to use the two nodes which are the texture coordinate node and the mapping node. So to add the texture coordinate node here, I'll press Shift A, then go to input and select the texture coordinate. Let's place this over here. Then for the vector mapping node, I'll press Shift A, then go to utilities, then in the vector, select this mapping node. Let's place this over here, and I'll now take the object socket and connect it to the vector, and the vector socket to the vector in the noise texture. After this, if I now try to change the scale value here, you will notice that we are getting this streak like pattern, but we are getting it in the opposite direction. So I'll undo and instead try to change the scale in the y-axis this time, and this will give us a nice pattern which we wanted to have. To make this more detailed, I'll go to the noise texture here and try to increase the detail value. Let's say I keep this to maximum 15, and then I'll go to the scale value in the y-axis and I'll keep this to something like 25. Let's zoom in to see the texture, and I feel like this looks fine. If you want, you can maybe change the position of these pointers to get some better results. But for now, I think that the texture for the tiles is completely ready. We might want to add some lighting later on to make these better, but currently we'll work on the materials part. And now I'll be selecting this mat or the carpet that I have here. And with this selected, I'll be creating a new material here. And for this one, I'll be creating a very simple material with the base color set to something like the blue color or maybe some purple color. And I'll also be increasing the roughness value to something like 0.8. I won't be adding too many details to this. Just a simple principal BSDF node with some blue as the base color and a high roughness value looks nice for this object. And other than this, I'll now be selecting this bed that I have here, and for this one I'll be having a material which looks very similar to the wood texture but not exactly same. So what I'll do is I'll click here to open the list of materials and select the material that we created for the tiles. Then if I try to make any changes here, let's say I select this brown color and try to change it, you will notice that we are seeing the changes on both the tiles as well as the bed. But since we do not want that to happen, we need to create a duplicate of this material that will work only for the bed. So for this, I can click on this icon here that creates a new material with the same settings in the shader editor. And now if I try to change anything here, you will notice the changes being applied only to the bed. So with this pointer, which is this brown colored pointer, I'll be changing this color to make it look something more orangish, something like this, so that it contrasts well with the floor tiles. And other than this, I'll also go to the scale value in the x-axis and try to keep this to something like a very high number, let's say 60. Let's also change the scale in the y-axis. So let's say I keep this to 20, or maybe let's keep this one also very high, let's say 100, so that we get a very slight white pattern here which isn't really visible too much. And I can even change the scaling in the z-axis. So let's say I keep this to 0.2 to basically stretch this texture. Then this is how it will look. Apart from this, I'll also change the position of this brown pointer so that the wood texture shows this white pattern more clearly, which again is a completely optional thing for you. If you feel like you don't want this, you can skip this part and simply apply a brown colored texture with maybe a little bit of noise. But I have added this slight pattern on the wood texture that looks like the white color. And now I'll be using the same material for these legs of the bed. So I'll be selecting these two. Then I'll select this bed and press Ctrl L to link the materials. But I also have two legs of the bed at the back, which I'm not able to see right now. So what I'll do is I'll select this wall over here, and it is named as plane.002. So I'll hide this, then change the angle, select these two, then select the bed, press Ctrl L to link the materials, and I'll now unhide the back wall. Let's change the angle to get back to the scene, and after this, the next thing for which we'll be creating a material is the mattress and this blanket or the bed sheet. So for the base color, I'll be choosing something which looks like a mix of white and yellow, basically a very slight yellow color. So in the shader editor, I'll click on the new button. Then in the base color, I'll change this to something like this color, and I'll be keeping the same value of roughness and other properties. Now for the bed sheet or the blanket over here, I'll be creating a material with some light pink color, and for that I first have to select the faces on which the new material will be applied. So I'll go to the top view, and I should also go back to the solid mode. Then with the mattress selected, I'll go to the edit mode, press Alt C to turn on the X-ray mode, and I'll be selecting all the faces over here which are for the blanket or the bed sheet. And then in the material properties, I'll click on this plus icon to create a new material slot, and for this slot I have to create a new material. So I'll click on the new button. We'll change the base color later on, but for now I'll click on the assign button to assign this new material to these selected faces. And now if I go to the render preview mode, I'll notice that these faces are white colored, and I also notice some issue over here which we'll discuss in a little while. But before that, let's set the base color as pink. So I'll click on the base color and change this to the pink color. I'll also bring down the brightness slightly, and here I notice some issues. That is, the pink colored material is also being visible on the mattress that we have. And to fix this, I simply have to add a loop cut over here, and I'll bring it closer to the area where the mattress intersects with the blanket or the bed sheet, and this is how it looks. I think I can further bring this closer, so I'll bring it down over here in the y-axis like this, and left click. Then for the pillow, I'll be assigning the same pink color that I used over here. So with this selected, I'll click here to open the list of materials that I have, and I'll select the last one which I just created. And now moving ahead, I'll be creating some material for this part which is below the window. In fact, I'm planning to use the same material that I used for the bed. It looks good enough for a wood material that can be used for the part below the window frame. So with this selected, I'll be applying the same material which is named as material.003. So I'll click over here to open this material list and select the material.003, and the material will get applied here. Now coming to the window frame, I think I can keep this to something which looks like a light gray color, but it should not blend with the walls completely. It should be more towards the white color that we have, but a little bit less in terms of brightness. So with this selected, I'll create a new material, and in the base color, I'll slightly bring down the brightness value, and I'll assign the same material to all the other objects which are forming the window frame. So I'll select each one, and in the end I'll select the one with the material, then press Ctrl L to open the link menu and select link materials. This will give us a nice white colored material which is not pure white, but it looks nice on our window. If you want, you can change this to something else, like you might want to have something yellow or maybe any other color of your choice. But I think that to make it look clean and simple, I'll be going for a color like this one. And now coming to this photo frame that I have over here, I'll select this, and for this one also I'll be using the same wood material that I use for the bed. So I'll click here and select material.003, and currently the wood material will get applied to this entire picture frame. But suppose I want to have a painting or a photograph here, then what I can do is I can go to the edit mode, then with the face select mode enabled, I'll select this face, create a duplicate of it, then right click to cancel movement, and I'll create a separate object out of it. So press P to separate by selection, and then I'll select the object from the scene collection. It appears like an oval shape because we have the subdivision surface added. So to fix this, I can go to the modify properties and remove the bevel and the subdivision. And now I have to create a new material for the photograph or the painting that we'll have here. So I'll click on this cross icon to remove this existing material. And even after that, it looks exactly the same because it is overlapping or intersecting with the wooden frame that is behind it. So to fix this, I'll simply press G to move it forward in the Y axis a little bit. And I'll also go to the top view to check if the positioning is correct or not. I'll select this wall and press H to hide, and then I'll select this frame, or basically the picture again, and let's zoom in to see if it's properly placed. And I think that this much should work. Just make sure that it's not outside the frame like this. And once it is done, I'll unhide the wall over here, and now I have to apply some image texture on this painting object that we have here. And for this I'll be using this picture that you can see here. I downloaded it for free on Unsplash. I'll drop its link in the description if you want to download the same image, or you can go with any other image that you like. Now to apply that image here, I'll create a new material, and now I'll be adding the image texture node. So press Shift A, then go to texture and select the image texture. Let's place this over here. I'll take the color socket and connect it to the base color, and by default it appears as the pink color because we don't have any image added here in the image texture node. So to fix this, I'll click on open button. Then this window will open from where you have to select the picture that you want to add. So let's say I want to add this image. So I'll select it and click on open image. Now it appears as if the image is not added over here because we can't really see it. But the reality is that it is added, but we need to fix its UV. So to do that, I'll change this window from the shader editor to the UV editor. So I can click here and select the UV editor window, then press tab to enter the edit mode, press A to select all, and if I zoom out here, then you can see that we have this entire painting or the image, and over here we notice these edges or the lines that are representing this selected face of the plane where we want to apply the painting, and we can see that it is covering only this much area. But let's say I now press S to scale it up like this, and then I move this down by pressing G over here and left click, then you will begin to notice that we are able to see some part of the image, but it's still not perfect because it is rotated in the incorrect manner. So I'll go back to the edit mode again, and this time I'll rotate it like this and type 90 to rotate it by 90 degrees. Then what I'll do is I need to adjust this according to the image that I can see at the back. So I'll scale this down like this and then scale it in the x-axis like this. And once you do this correctly, you will be able to see the image properly, and you might also think that it appears very dull. It does not have much brightness. So you can fix this thing easily by going to the shader editor window, and in the emission settings in the principal BSDF node, I'll set the emission color to the color socket that is coming from the image texture node, and then in the emission strength, if I type 0.5, then this is how the image now looks. You can control this emission value to adjust the brightness properly, and for now I think that this much looks perfect for the scene. And now moving ahead, the next thing that we're going to do is to apply some material on this side table that we have here. And for this one also, I'll be using the same material that I used for the bed. So it has the material.003. So with this selected, I'll click here and select that specific material. Now for these circular parts that we created, I'll be adding another material. But first let's select them. So with this selected, I'll first click the forward slash button to keep the focus only on this object. Then I'll be selecting these faces over here. Let's also go back to the solid mode and also enable the X-ray mode to select these. Let's change the angle to select all these, and after this I'll go to the material properties and create a new material and click on the assign button. Now it's completely up to you that what color you want to fill here. For example, in this case I'll be going for something which looks very simple. Let's say the blue color, or maybe some purple color, and I'll adjust the roughness value to, let's say, 0.8. And other than this, you will notice that it's not really looking completely oval or circular that we wanted. So to fix this, you can just go to the edit mode. Then with all these faces selected here, if I press I to inset and left click, then you will notice that we now have these circular faces. And just to ensure that in the inset faces settings on this bottom left corner, you have the boundary offset turned on like this, and if I now go to the object mode, then this is how they look. Now other than this, I'll now be selecting this lower body of the lamp, and for this I'll create a very simple material with some light green color, or maybe something that looks like dark yellow. I'll go with the default roughness value, and for this part of the lamp which is on the top, I'll be creating another material and I'll keep its base color as gray color, and in this case also I'll go with the default roughness value. Now coming to this object over here, I'll be assigning the same material that I have for this one, which is material.009. So with this selected, I'll click here to open the list of all the materials and select the required material. And with this, we now have the materials, textures, and everything applied. And if you think that the scene still looks dull, it is basically because of the lighting issues. But we can fix that easily by first going to the viewport shading menu here and turning on the scene world lighting. Then I'll go to the world properties and reduce the strength down to 0 so that we'll see only the lights that we have in the scene. And now what I'll do is I'll be adding a plane over here near the window, and from that we'll be having some white or some yellowish light. So to do this thing, I'll press Shift A, then go to Mesh and add a plane. Let's rotate it in the Y axis by 90 degrees. Press 7 on the numpad to go to the top view. I'll place this over here, then change the angle. Let's scale this up and move it above in the Z axis like this. We can adjust its position later on, but for now, to add some emission or some light to this, I'll go to the shader editor, create a new material, and in the emission settings in the principal BSDF node, I'll increase this value and I'll keep this to something very high, let's say 20. Then I'll move this slightly backwards in the x-axis so that we have a proper lighting and we are able to see the shadows. Then in the color, I'll change the emission color to something yellow. So I'll go with something like this. But currently, we also need to have some white light setup so that we are able to see the objects in a much better way. Right now, this will act like you see the sunlight from the window, so it's acting like that for now. But for the main light, which will be white colored, I'll be adding another plane over here at the top that will emit the light in a way that we are able to see the room properly. So to do this, I'll go to the top view first, and with this selected, I'll create its duplicate, and let's say I place this over here. Then for the color, I'll change this color to the white color, and in the emission strength, let's say I keep this to 15, or maybe let's bring it down to 12. Then to fix its position, I'll go to the front view, then press G to move it over here, and I'll push it slightly backwards in the x-axis. And yes, I did a small mistake here, which is I made the changes in emission color for both the objects, basically both the plane objects that we have. For this one, we needed to have the yellow color. So to fix this, I'll select it, then go to the shader editor window, click on this button to create the duplicate. Then in the color, I'll change this back to the yellow color like before, and in the strength I'll keep this to, let's say, 20, and we again get that yellow colored look of the lighting on the room. And now I'll be selecting that white colored plane that we have here. Let's go to the top view and place this over here like this. Let's also go to the side view to move it over here so that we get a nice lighting which looks soft and a bit natural. Then after this, I'll be adding one light over here inside the lamp so that we get some cool reflections around. So for this, I'll press Shift A, then go to light and select a point light. Let's move it above in the Z axis, and I'll push it backwards in the Y axis. Let's go to the top view, press G to move it and place it inside the lamp. Let's also check it from the other view. I'll push it slightly downwards like this, and then to adjust its power and color, I'll go to the object data properties here. Then in the power, I'll enter very high value, let's say 50, or maybe let's keep this to 100. And after this, I'll go to color and change this to, let's say, the blue color. Then I'll move it slightly above in the Z axis so that we get these nice reflections due to this upper part of the lamp. In fact, I can even move it to make any changes in the reflections if I need to. But for now, I think that I should be changing only the color of the lamp, basically the light inside it. Like I should keep this as the blue color or the dark blue, something like this. And apart from this, I'll be adding a few lights here as well on the top. So I'll press Shift A to add the point light. Let's move it above in the Z axis. I'll set the power to, let's say, 100 watt, and for the first light, let's say I choose the red color. Then I'll go to the top view, press G to place it over here and change the angle. Then I'll move it slightly downwards, and in a similar way I'll be creating a duplicate of this light and place this here near the bed. For this one, I'll be going with some lighter color, let's say the light green color. And then for one light over here, I'll create its duplicate. Let's say I place this over here, and for this one I'll be choosing the blue or maybe the purple color. And let's change the angle to see how the room looks. We now have a nice lighting, not just from the window but also from the plane that we added here behind the scene, some lights here on the top of the wall, and of course we have this lamp also. And apart from this, one last thing that I'll do is to add a plane object at the bottom. I'll keep its color as something purple. So let's see that. I'll be pressing Shift A, then I'll go to mesh and select a plane. Let's scale it up 20 times, or maybe let's do that 4 times again, and I'll push it slightly downwards over here. Then in the material properties, I'll create a new material and change the base color to something purple, or maybe I think we should keep this to the blue color instead, basically the dark blue color. I'll go with the default roughness and the metallic values, and with this we now have the complete scene ready for render. But we need to add a camera to create the final render. So press Shift A, then select the camera, and to set this view as the camera view, simply hold down Ctrl and Alt and press 0 on the numpad. Then simply click on this lock icon, and now if I try to make any adjustments in the view, then you will notice that the camera view also gets those changes. And this is how I'll be rendering this image now. Let's see if all the render properties are correct. And here I think that all the settings are completely correct here. I won't be making any changes. And to finally render this, I'll click on render and select render image. This will start the rendering process, and this is how the final render looked. With this, we also arrived to the end of this tutorial where we practiced creating this stylized bedroom scene with some 3D models, some materials and textures, some lighting techniques. So if you learned something new from this video, then do hit the like button and do subscribe for more such tutorials, courses, and related content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in some other one.